Chapter 875. The woman from the Shangguan clan was stunned. Seeing that a foundation establishment cultivator wasn't a match for the youth, she couldn't help but be flabbergasted and retreat step by step. She was certain that the youth was hiding his cultivation. However, no matter how outstanding a youth's strength was, he couldn't have easily beaten a foundation establishment cultivator to the point where she couldn't dodge or get up, right? Could it be that this youth wasn't a youth at all, but an old monster? The more she thought about it, the more likely it seemed. She looked at the gray-robed middle-aged man and saw that he had been beaten into a sorry state by a small beast. His body was even covered in blood. "You want to leave?" Fengjiu glanced at the woman from the corner of his eye, wanting to leave. He curled his lips and attacked her with his whip. However, he didn't manage to touch the woman this time, because the whip was caught by a gray-robed old man who suddenly appeared. "Since you've already vented your anger, you should stop." The gray-robed old man held the whip, preventing Fengjiu from hitting the woman again. Third elder. When she saw the old man, a trace of fear appeared in the woman's eyes. She restrained her arrogance and stood respectfully behind the old man, not daring to move. When the gray-robed man saw the old man, his heart sank. He quickly withdrew his hand and retreated behind the old man. "Greetings, third elder." "Humph." The old man harumphed. His sharp gaze swept past the woman and landed on the middle-aged man. "I told you to follow me, and you followed me like this? She's not sensible, and you're not sensible either? How absurd." The two were scolded, but they didn't dare to retort. They could only lower their heads and listen. When Fengjiu saw this, his eyes flickered. He sized up the old man and saw that he was a nascent soul cultivator. Furthermore, from their words, it seemed that this old man was an elder of the Shangguan clan. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and apologize to young Master Feng," the old man shouted at the two people standing behind him. "Third elder, you clearly." That woman was unwilling to accept this, but before she could finish her words, she met that pair of stern eyes. She could not help but lower her head and swallow the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She looked at Fengjiu and gritted her teeth. "I'm sorry, young Master Feng. Please forgive our rudeness." The gray-clothed man stepped forward and bowed. He did not dare to disobey the third elder's words. "Excuse me, young master." The old man nodded slightly and said to Fengjiu. Seeing this, Fengjiu did not say anything. He raised his hand and threw the whip back. "All right. This young master is magnanimous and will not bicker with a lowly person." She turned around and walked over to the stall. She gave the couple 2 gold coins as compensation for the broken table and asked them to bring another pot of tea. Only then did she call Tunyan back. She walked over to the unbroken table and sat down. "You two go back first." The old man turned around and said to the two of them, indicating for them to leave first. "Yes." The two of them didn't dare to say anything else. After answering, they returned to the inn. After the two of them left, the old man stepped forward and came to Fengjiu's table. He looked at his handsome face and asked with a smile, "Young Master Feng, may this old man sit down?" Fengjiu glanced at him and asked, "What do you want?" This old man looked at her with a strange gaze. Chapter 876. She watched as the old man sat down, poured himself a cup of tea, took a sip, then put it down and looked at her. She sharply noticed that his gaze seemed to be probing. "May I know which country young Master Feng is from? The surname Feng is really quite special and rare." The old man looked at Fengjiu and asked with a smile. However, he paused for a moment and laughed again. "Ha ha, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Shangguan Dijing, the third elder of the Shangguan family." Hearing this, Fengjiu's heart skipped a beat. She said, "I'm from the Phoenix dynasty." Indeed, there are very few people with the surname Feng. Even in our country, only our bloodline has the surname Feng.
"Oh.
Phoenix dynasty? May I ask, what rank is it?" "9th rank." She continued, "More than a year ago, it was called the Glorious Sun Country." The old man's expression changed when he heard this. He looked at Fengjiu with a strange gaze. "I see. Due to the difference in rank and distance between countries, he did not know much about some dynasties. In fact, he had never even heard of them, especially when there were too many ninth-rank countries. Young Master Feng is also here to participate in the Pill Appraisal Convention on the 3rd of March. Could it be that young Master Feng is also an alchemist? He asked casually while stroking his beard. She took a sip of tea and said casually, "As far as I know, the Pill Appraisal Convention of the country's imperial city doesn't stipulate that only alchemists can participate. On the contrary, as long as one has a pill in hand, they can participate." That's right. The Pill Appraisal Convention is to appraise pills, not to select an alchemist. It's also not a competition between alchemists. Therefore, as long as the quality of the pill is outstanding, anyone can participate. Speaking of this, he smiled and continued, "I believe young Master Feng also knows that our Shangguan family is an alchemy family. In fact, this time I secretly followed you here not only to make sure the juniors don't cause trouble, but also to recruit some talented alchemists. If young Master Feng is an alchemist, you can come to our Shangguan family to give it a try." Feng Jiu smiled faintly, but did not say anything. The old man didn't say anything else when he saw this. Instead, he sat for a while and chatted for a while before standing up and taking his leave. Feng Jiu supported her cheek with one hand and tapped the table with the other. A faint light flashed through her clear eyes as she looked in the direction that the old man left. No one knew what she was thinking. "Master." Leng Shuang and Leng Hua quickly walked back. They rushed back because they heard that there was a fight here. But when they saw that their master was fine, they felt relieved. "You're back?" She glanced at the two of them and asked, "How did the investigation go?" "Master, many people from other countries have come to the Pill Appraisal Convention in the country's imperial city. Some of them are from aristocratic families and imperial families from first-tier countries. We heard that among the alchemists who will be appraising pills, aside from the alchemist sent by the Shangguan family from a first-tier country, there is also the Tianji elder's disciple, young Master Mo Chen." Leng Hua paused for a moment before continuing, "The Pill Appraisal Convention will be held at the Pill Appraisal Hall. Aside from status, those who wish to enter must also have at least a third-tier pill in hand. Those with pills below the third tier cannot enter, and the security will be extremely tight. Also." Chapter 877. Hearing this, Feng Jiu was slightly stunned. How come I didn't know about this? Someone had already spread the news about something that even she didn't know about? Who knew that she would be participating in the Pill Appraisal Convention? Although she was here, she didn't plan to use her identity as the ghost doctor. Now, there was news that the ghost doctor would be participating? So instead of saying that everyone is here for the Pill Appraisal Convention, it's more accurate to say that they're here for the ghost doctor. Especially after the ghost doctor's latest beauty pill was auctioned off at an astronomical price in Qingtung black market, the various powers have become even more interested in the ghost doctor. Hearing this, she couldn't help but laugh. Even the beauty pill is known about? Who won the auction for the beauty pill in the end? It was a princess from a first-class country's imperial family. After winning the auction, she presented it to her mother. It's said that the imperial concubine was originally neglected and not favored, but after taking the beauty pill, her beauty returned to that of a young girl. She was in the limelight for a while and regained the king's favor. Now, women from various countries have their eyes on the beauty pill. Some have even asked around for the ghost doctor's whereabouts and found the black market. However, the black market is very secretive about the ghost doctor's identity. I didn't expect that the black market's president would have the ability to let people from a first-class country know about the beauty pill being auctioned off in a sixth-tier country. He even made a name for himself. His efficiency is not bad. She smiled as she spoke. Feeling that this wasn't the place to talk, she decided to pay for the tea and return to the inn with them. "Sir, you don't have to pay anymore. It's enough, it's enough." Seeing that Feng Jiu was about to pay, the couple at the stall hurriedly stopped him. Feng Jiu smiled and tossed out a silver coin. "This is the money for the tea. Take it." With that, he led them back. After returning to the inn, the two men told her everything they heard. In the end, Leng Hua said, Mistress, the person who booked the room should be that Sir Mo Chin. We passed by the number 1 inn on our way back and happened to hear the innkeeper mention it. Then it should be him. He was the one who told me about the pill appraisal convention. At that time, I didn't accept his invitation, so I think he guessed that I would still come. She smiled, thinking that this Mo Chin was really strange. Did he treat her differently just because of a few words? However, she always felt that he didn't make it clear when he said those things. He was probably still holding back, as if there was something she didn't know. Lung Hua couldn't help asking, Mistress, who will be participating in the pill appraisal convention? Feng Jiu's identity is enough. As for the identity of the ghost doctor, let them wait. She instructed, Mistress Yun's this place, as much as possible, stay in, assest you tites. There are too many people here. It's easy to get into trouble. Mistress. They had already prepared everything they needed, so they really didn't need to go out much recently. Moreover, they went out to ask around today and found that there were really many people from other countries. Those people from the first and second-class countries were so arrogant that no one dared to provoke them. They could be found everywhere, teaching people a lesson at the slightest provocation. Knock, 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 knock. Just then, someone knocked on the door. When the 3 people in the room heard the sound, they looked at each other. Feng Jiu gestured, and Lung Hua walked up to the inner door to inquire. Chapter 878. Is Master Feng inside? This Du has come to pay his respects. The voice from outside sounded like a middle-aged man. Lung Hua looked back at Feng Jiu. Seeing her nod, he opened the door. As soon as the door was opened, he saw 3 people standing outside. One of them was a middle-aged man, while the other 2 were old. Who are you? Lung Hua stood by the door and asked. We're from the black market. The middle-aged man answered, looking inside with a hint of excitement. Hearing that they were from the black market, Lung Hua was startled. Then he heard his master's voice from inside. Let them in. Please come in. Lung Hua turned slightly and invited the 3 people in. At this time, Lung Shuang walked out of the room and stood guard outside. Seeing this, Lung Hua followed the 3 people in and stood behind his master. Master Feng, I'm the president of the black market. My surname is Du. These 2 are the elders of the black market. When we heard that Master Feng was here, we specially came to pay our respects. As the middle-aged man spoke, he cupped his hands and bowed to the youth sitting at the table. You knew that I was here? Feng Jiu raised her eyebrows and looked at the 3. You know who I am? Hearing this, the 3 people's eyes flashed. Master Feng is the holder of the Black Order in our black market. All the higher-ups of the black market know Master Feng's identity. Since you know, don't you know that there are many pairs of eyes watching? Yet you came here to see me. Are you deliberately causing trouble for me? Her voice was cold, and there was a trace of displeasure on her face. Hearing this, the 3 of them hurriedly said, We don't dare to cause trouble for young master. We came here to avoid being noticed by others. Young master, don't worry, no one will notice. However, other than visiting young master today, we also have something to report to young master. Feng Jiu glanced at them and said, Speak. Recently, due to the sky-high price of the beauty pill, it has attracted the attention of many forces. Many forces are already looking for the whereabouts of the ghost doctor. Because the ghost doctor once removed her mask in the Enchanting kingdom, many people have seen her appearance. According to what we know, some forces already have a portrait of the ghost doctor. Hearing this, she gently tapped her hand on the table, making a knocking sound. She asked casually, in other words, my identity is about to be exposed. As for the exposure of the ghost doctor's identity, it wasn't that she hadn't thought about it. After all, when she had taken off her mask back then, she had already expected this to happen. However, the power of the black market was still very strong. After concealing this news for so long, it was about time. Yes, someone from a first-class country is involved in the investigation. We can't hide this for long. It doesn't matter if it's exposed. Just make sure that no one dares to touch my country. She stared at the president of the black market and said. Hearing this, the president of the black market smiled. Don't worry, Master Feng. With the protection of the black market, even a first-class country wouldn't dare to offend you. Fengjiu glanced at the three of them and asked, where did the news of the ghost doctor participating in the pill appraisal convention come from? The news didn't come from the black market. We're currently investigating. However, it's very likely that it came from the Kingdom's imperial family. Chapter 879. They chatted in the room for about an hour before leaving. Perhaps it was just as they said, they came in a low-key manner and did not attract the attention of other forces. Therefore, no one came to disturb Fengjiu during this period of time. In the following period of time, the three of them rarely left the inn. When Fengjiu and Leng Hua were practicing, Leng Shuang was responsible for guarding them and not allowing anyone to disturb them. She was now a great martial mentor and a monk at the peak of the Black Realm. She only needed an opportunity to enter the martial Grandmaster realm. Her master had given her a bottle of potion that could help her break through. However, she did not want to break through during this period of time because she had not been in the peak stage for long. Therefore, she listened to her master and waited until everything was ready. Leng Hua devoted himself to practicing and practiced whenever he had time. With the help of the potion, his progress was great. As for Fengjiu, when he was practicing in the space, he did not forget to turn over the soil, plant the herbs, and water the plants. Time passed quickly. Finally, it was the third day of March. For the various forces in the Imperial City, this day was exciting and anticipated. For the common people who only wanted 3 meals a day, this day was livelier than usual. Fengjiu and the other two went to the alchemy hall early in the morning. When they arrived, there was already a long queue. The three of them did not line up. Instead, they entered through the back door with a token given to them by the black market president. After entering, they saw that the interior of the alchemy hall was very large and could accommodate nearly 1,000 people. The alchemy appraisal platform was about 1 meter above the ground. In addition to the seats in the hall, there were also 10 VIP rooms. Because there were so many people, no one noticed Fengjiu and the other two. They all found their seats according to the tokens in their hands and sat down, waiting for the alchemy appraisal convention to begin. After some of them sat down, they began to talk. I heard that the ghost doctor will be here too. Moreover, the number 1 heaven room was specially reserved for him. I heard that he is just a young man. That's incredible. Besides being a pharmacist, he is also an alchemist. That's right. Comparisons are odious. I heard that many powers have come for the ghost doctor today. Among them, there are many powers from first-class countries. It seems that even the royal family has come. Other than the first room, there is 1 room that belongs to the royal family of our country. The other 8 rooms are all occupied by people from first-class countries. That's normal. Even if it's just a family from a first-class country, their status is still extraordinary. Look, the pill appraisers today are all heavyweights. Other than the Shangguan family's elder, there's also Elder Tianji's disciple, a pill saint, and they entered through the back door and went upstairs directly from the back, almost avoiding the people downstairs. Therefore, when the three of them walked into Sky Room number 1, many people still didn't know that there was someone in the room. However, when some of the people who were paying attention saw Fengjiu and the other two enter Room 1, their eyes lit up. Some of them even took out a portrait and compared it on the spot. The portrait of the ghost doctor could be said to have been obtained by these powers first. And the red-robed young man from earlier looked exactly like the person in the portrait. It's him, right? A middle-aged man whispered to the old man beside him. Yes, there should be no mistake. The old man nodded. Chapter 880. The old man nodded and turned to enter the room to report to the people inside. At the same time, the other people who had arrived earlier also noticed and reported to their masters. Hence, before the pill appraisal convention had even begun, there were already people knocking on the door to pay their respects. Unfortunately, Fengjiu did not even give them the chance to step into the room. She sat in the room and ate some tea and snacks. Then, she walked around the room and finally laid down on a soft couch. Through a small slit in the window, she looked down at the crowd below. When her gaze landed on the immortal-like figure who was walking up to the pill appraisal stage, Imo-chan seemed to sense it and looked over at her. However, when he saw the location of the room, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He had expected her to come, but he did not expect her to be the ghost doctor. However, when he thought about her medical skills, he understood. As the host announced the start of the pill appraisal convention, people began to present their pills for evaluation. Seeing that the pill appraisal convention had already begun, Lung Hua could not help but look at Fingjiu. "Master, I don't think we've presented our pills yet. There's no hurry, let's wait and see. The main event is coming up." She curled her lips into a smile and calmly watched the pill appraisal convention. After about 2 hours, only one pill was left on the stage for evaluation. Hence, the host raised his voice and asked, "Is there anyone else whose pill is comparable to this level 4 vitality pill?" The hall was very quiet because everyone in the hall had already brought their pills up for evaluation. Only the last pill was of the highest grade and the best quality. "There is." The voice came from the heavenly room. When the owner of the level 4 vitality pill heard that voice, his heart could not help but skip a beat. Even though he knew that this pill appraisal convention would not be so simple, he could not help but look forward to it. After all, this was a chance to make a name for himself. As long as he showed his face here, he would be famous in all the countries. His status would also rise with the tide. Even some powerful cultivators would have to treat him with respect. However, he knew that in addition to the alchemists and forces of various countries, the ghost doctor, who had recently become famous everywhere, had also come. When it came to the ghost doctor, it really made people respect and hate him. They respected him for his superb medical skills, his talent, and his ability to refine medicine and pills. They hated him for stealing their limelight and cutting off their chance to stand out. The guard of the heavenly room came forward with a tray and placed the pills on the appraisal platform. "This is a level 4 spirit congealing pill." Then he retreated to the side. The appraisers looked at them one by one. After comparing them, they whispered a few words. In the end, the level 4 vitality pill was defeated. Then, the people of the heavenly room took out their pills to compete. Some of them were defeated, and then they took out better ones. Another 2 hours passed in a row. The people of the 9 rooms heavenly room all took out their pills for appraisal and competition. Even the black market from a first-class country also took out their pills. But at this time, the heavenly room 1 was still quiet, without any movement. Could it be that the ghost doctor saw that the level of the pill was too high and retreated? For a moment, everyone had doubts in their hearts. Until, after several fierce competitions, the Shengguan family from a first-class country took the lead with a level 5 pill. Chapter 881. The first heaven room presents the 5 elemental pill for the competition. A middle-aged man who was hosting the competition raised his voice after reading the information in his hands. There was a faint trace of excitement in his voice, as if he was afraid that the people around him could not hear him clearly. His voice was laced with spiritual energy, so the moment he spoke, it was clearly heard by the thousands of people around him. 5 elemental pill? What kind of pill is that? I've never heard of it. What 5 elemental pill? Why didn't they report the pill's grade? I've been refining pills for so long, but I've never heard of any 5 elemental pill. First heaven room. Wasn't it said to be the ghost doctor? Does that mean that the ghost doctor is really here? If it's the ghost doctor's pill, it probably won't be simple either. That's right, from his medicine to the beauty-nourishing pill, none of his pills are ordinary. Furthermore, it's said that his items all have a mark, so no one can fake them. I wonder what effects this 5 elemental pill has. I've never heard of this pill before. In an instant, there were endless discussions, all trying to guess what kind of pill the 5 elemental pill was. Trying to guess what kind of person the ghost doctor was. Some of them stared at the pill appraisal platform, while others stared at the first heaven room. The atmosphere had become even more expectant after the first heaven room presented the pill. Compared to the confusion of the others, the pill appraiser's expressions changed slightly, and a strange look flashed across their eyes. Especially the third elder of the Shengguan family, who was looking at the woman in black who presented the pill. he was even more astonished. Was it that red-robed youth? That youth called Fengjiu? He was the ghost doctor? Lung Shuang placed the pill on the pill appraisal platform and said, "This is the 5-elemental pill, a pill that can allow an ordinary person without spiritual roots to develop spiritual roots after eating it." After saying that, she retreated to the side. However, when she said that a person without spiritual roots could develop spiritual roots after eating it, the entire pill appraisal hall went into an uproar. Did I hear wrongly? A person without spiritual roots can develop spiritual roots after eating it? Is this true? Isn't this too heaven-defying? I've never heard of a person without spiritual roots having the chance to cultivate. If what she said is true, then the value of this pill is really incredible. That's right. This is a medicinal pill that can change a person's life. It's too heaven-defying. Everyone was talking at once. The whole scene was as lively as a market. What demeanor! What calmness! All of that was thrown to the back of their minds. Even the people in the heavenly room were the same. After hearing those words, they were shocked and stood up one after another. There was actually such a heaven-defying pill in this world? While the crowd was engaged in a heated discussion, the appraisers at the pill appraisal table weren't idling around either. After examining the pill, they passed it to another. They used a pair of tweezers to hold the pill in their hands, examining it from its color to its smell to its veins. "Young Master Imo-chan, what do you think?" The third elder of the Shangguan clan looked at the white-robed Imo-chan beside him and asked gently. When the others heard this, their gazes also fell on the two of them. "I've heard of the 5 elements pill before. It's an ancient pill recipe, but it's been lost for many years. I just didn't expect to see a 5 elements pill again today." Chapter 882. His meaning was clear. In other words, this 5 elemental pill belonged to Dan Wang, the champion of today's competition. The other appraisers nodded at his words, indicating that they had no objections because that was indeed the case. They were more experienced than everyone else here, so they had heard of this 5 elemental pill before. What was different was that they had only heard of it in the past, but today they witnessed it with their own eyes. No matter how they looked at it, this 5 elemental pill was the best out of all the other pills here today. Naturally, it was widely expected to win the competition. And so, this pill appraisal convention that lasted for several hours came to an end after Fengjiu presented his 5 elemental pill. Without a doubt, she took first place. When Lung Shuang returned with the pill and the prizes, he was followed by a few people. The appraisers, including Imo-chan, followed him to the door. After Lung Shuang entered, they waited outside the door. Inside the room, Fengjiu put away the pill and looked at the prizes. Apart from 3 extremely rare spirit egg fruits, there were also 2 bags of precious spirit herb seeds, several priceless herbs, and a 500-year-old ginseng. There are quite a lot of prizes. Some of these things can't be bought outside, even if you have the money. She looked at the prizes before finally putting them away. "Master, the appraisers are waiting outside. They would like to see you," Lung Shuang said, looking at her joyful face. Fengjiu took a sip of tea, then said, "Let them in."
"Yes."
Lung Shuang walked to the door and opened it. However, when the door opened, there were obviously more people inside. Seeing this, she turned to the appraisers and said, "My master invites you in." The appraisers couldn't help but smile at this. Meanwhile, the others behind them had different expressions on their faces. Someone asked, "Miss, please help us inform our master that we would also like to pay the ghost doctor a visit." "My apologies, my master is very busy." Having said that, he invited the appraisers into his room and closed the door behind him, completely ignoring their stiff expressions. Out of the 4 appraisers, Fengjiu recognized 2 of them. When the Shangguan family's 3rd elder saw that it was indeed Fengjiu in the room, the smile on his face deepened. He stepped forward and cupped his hands in greeting. "Young Master Feng, we meet again. Please take a seat." Fengjiu nodded and invited them to sit. Imo-chan sat beside her. When he saw her half-smiling gaze fall on him, he calmly shifted his gaze away. The other 2 appraisers were also from a Tier 1 country. After meeting Fengjiu, they introduced themselves and asked if Fengjiu was interested in developing in their countries. Fengjiu chatted with them for about an hour before she said to them, "The pill appraisal convention has ended, and I should be leaving in the next 2 days. If fate allows it in the future, I'll treat all of you to a drink." Hearing this, the appraisers understood what she meant. They stood up and bid her farewell. When they stepped out, they saw that the others were still surrounding them, so they left on their own accord. Inside the room, Fengjiu looked at Emo-chan, who was sitting there motionlessly, and asked, "You're not leaving? It's not the first time we've met. Why are you being so distant?" Emo-chan replied gently. His gaze fell on her face as he asked, "When are you going back?" "I'll go with you." Chapter 883. From what you're saying, it sounds like you don't want me to go to the academies? His voice was calm, and his tone was gentle but cold. Hee, how could that be? Whether you go or not, it doesn't really matter to me. She stood up as she spoke and dusted off her robes. She looked at him and said, "I'm currently staying at an inn in the west of the city. Now that the pill appraisal convention has ended, I said that I'd be leaving in 2 days, but I plan to leave now. Do you really want to come along? Then hurry back and pack your things. I'm wearing light clothes." He stood up as well. "However, I don't think we can leave now. Other than the imperial family of each country, there are also people from a Tier 1 country waiting outside. That's easy. We'll leave through the window." She gestured to the window on the side. The window at the back faces the back of the pill appraisal hall. There's no one there. As she spoke, she led Leng Hua and Leng Shuang to the window and left through the back. Seeing this, Emo-chen's lips curled up imperceptibly. He found it amusing and left through the window with her. Outside the room, the people waiting outside waited for a long time, but no one came out. Thinking that young Master Emo-chen had not come out after entering the room, they asked, "They're still inside, right? They shouldn't have left, right? This room doesn't have a back door. They should still be inside, right? It's true that this room doesn't have a back door, but there's a back window. They couldn't have left through the window to avoid us, right?" This person's words stunned everyone. They found it unbelievable. Wasn't leaving through the window a little too degrading? However, it was said that the ghost doctor had a strange personality. She might do things that they wouldn't. Hence, when there was no response after knocking on the door, someone pushed the door open and entered. The room was empty, and there wasn't even a shadow in sight. However, the window at the back was open. Did they really leave through the window? Everyone was stunned and in disbelief. Without giving anyone time to react, Fengjiu and the others returned to the inn and brought Tan Yun along. They left the imperial city and headed back, but when everyone heard the news and rushed to the inn, they were still a step too late. They still didn't see her. On the mountain path, they rested on the grass after walking for a while. Fengjiu sat cross-legged and looked at Emo-chan, who was sitting beside her. She smiled and asked, "If you leave with me, will they say that you're with me? That you're colluding with each other to take the prize?" Hearing this, Emo-chan looked at her and instead of answering, she asked, "Were you really the one who refined the 5 elemental pill?" "Of course I refined it. Where else would I have gotten it?" If it were anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to do it. But she could always make the impossible possible. "Master, have some pastries to fill your stomach." Leng Hua took out a box of pastries and placed it in front of the two. He smiled at Emo-chan and said, "Master, have some too. You won't be hungry on the way." "When did you buy these? How come I didn't know?" Fengjiu's eyes lit up. She took a piece and ate it while saying to Emo-chan, "Don't be shy. Help yourself." Chapter 884. Leng Hua, no wonder my father told me to bring you wherever I go. I really don't have to worry about what you do. Cultivate well, and when I go to the Empire in the future, I'll bring you and your sister along. You'll be my housekeeper then." She smiled and narrowed her eyes. Hearing this, Leng Hua was delighted. He immediately replied, "Don't worry, master. I'll definitely cultivate well." Emo-chan ate the pastries elegantly. It was as if he wasn't in the wilderness, but in a luxurious hall. He sat upright and slowly tasted the pastries. When he heard their conversation, he didn't even raise his eyes as he said, "Before you reach the nascent soul stage, I don't recommend you go to the Empire. Before you reach the nascent soul stage, I don't recommend you go to the Empire." Fengjiu's eyes flickered. She heard these words again. Originally, these words were said by Xianyuan Mose. He told her not to go to the Empire before she reached the nascent soul stage. And now, Mo Chin actually said the same thing. Could it be that the people in the Empire were really that strong? That terrifying? Could it be that the people there are all above the nascent soul stage? She couldn't help but ask. In that place, even the waiters at the inns are great spiritual masters. Golden core cultivators can be seen everywhere. Moreover, if you don't agree with them, the most direct way to deal with them is to fight. After eating 2 pastries, he wiped the corners of his mouth and continued, "Without the cultivation of the nascent soul stage, and without the protection of a powerful force, you'll have to tuck your tail between your legs." Fengjiu was silent. She was now at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. She had set a goal for herself, which was to reach the golden core stage within a year. However, when she returned to the academy, she still had to participate in the ranking competition. She reckoned that she wouldn't have enough time. As for reaching the nascent soul stage, she didn't need to think about it for the next 2 years. She and Xianyuan Mose had agreed on a 10-year time limit. However, she only planned to reach the nascent soul stage within 5 years.
Now more than a year had passed.
Perhaps because the topic was too heavy, the two sat down and didn't talk about it again. After resting for a while, Fengjiu looked at the sky and directly took out the flying ship. She said to the 3 of them, "Let's get on the ship. The speed will be faster, and you can also rest on the boat." Mo Chin glanced at the luxurious spaceship and then glanced at her. His gaze seemed to be saying, "Why didn't you take it out earlier?" Fengjiu was speechless. Sitting on the flying ship, he burned his spirit stones and headed towards Enchanting Kingdom. On the other side, after 3rd elder of Shangguan clan in the imperial city of Yi City learned that Fengjiu and the others had left, he also left with his subordinates. He planned to send someone to investigate Fengjiu's identity after returning to the clan. He wanted to know, other than his identity as the ghost doctor, was there any other relationship with the Feng family? After about half a month's time, Fengjiu and the rest returned to Enchanting Kingdom. After arriving at Enchanting Kingdom, she kept the flying ship and said to Mo Chin, "We've arrived at the border here. I still have things to do, so I won't be returning to the academy with you." Mo Chin glanced at her and nodded. She didn't even say a word before leaving on her sword. After she left, Fengjiu brought Lung Shuang and the rest to the manor, planning to pick up Lao Bai and return to the academy. As soon as they arrived at the manor, they were greeted by 8 Phoenix guards. "Master, you're finally back." Chapter 885. The assessment is finally out. I heard my father mention it when I went back for the new year. However, the 7th class is only temporary. I believe that it won't be long before the country's strength can be improved again. She smiled, and her words were full of confidence. "That's for sure." The 8 of them smiled and replied. Fengjiu glanced around but did not see Xiang Hua and Bai Xiao. He asked, "Where are the 2 of them?" "Bai Xiao and Du Fan are at the back of the mountain. Xiang Hua went out on a mission 2 days ago and hasn't returned yet. However, he should be back today." As Luo Yu spoke, he told her about the missions they had received these days and the improvement of their strength. "Master, we have all entered the martial arts grandmaster level. Since we took on a mission, there is nothing we can't complete." Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. "Don't be too proud. This is only the Enchanting Kingdom. The strength of a martial arts grandmaster is not strong. You have to be careful when you are outside. All right, I will go and rest first. I will return to the academy tomorrow morning. Lung Shuang and Lung Hua will stay here. Look for me if you need anything."
"Yes,"
everyone replied. After watching her leave, they surrounded Lung Shuang and Lung Hua and asked them questions. Especially after they found out that Lung Hua had a water spirit root, they were very curious. However, in the evening, before the sky was completely dark, Du Fan, Luo Yu and the others' expressions changed drastically. They hurried to the courtyard where she lived. Master, something happened. In the room, Feng Jiao had just woken up for a while. After hearing the anxious voices outside, she opened the door and walked out. Seeing the sorrowful and angry expressions on their faces, her heart couldn't help but sink. Just as she was about to speak, she noticed that some of them didn't look right. Master, Xianghua, he is dead. As Luo Yu spoke, he lowered his head in grief. Although they had not known Xianghua for long, they worked together and went on missions together. However, who knew that he would mysteriously die after taking on a mission? Fengjiu, who was about to ask where they had been, heard this. Fengjiu's heart sank. Dead? How did he die? How did you know? Where did you get the news? As a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core stage, how could he die so easily? She had never thought that they would suddenly tell her that Xianghua was dead. Du Fan took a deep breath and said in a pained voice, "Someone activated the array and hung his body outside our manor. Let's go out and check." When they went outside, they didn't see anyone else. They only saw Xianghua's body hanging on a tree not far away. When they saw his body, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that Xianghua, who had been drinking and laughing with them 2 days ago, had died just like that. Where's the corpse? Her face was dark, and her eyes were cold. It's in the front yard, everyone said, and led her to the front yard. When they came to the front yard, Fengjiu did not touch Xianghua's body. Instead, she stood a step away and looked at him. Seeing that the person lying on the ground had no breath and his body was stiff, her hands were tightly clenched into fists, and her heart was full of killing intent. She raised her eyes and glanced at them. Du Fan, Luo Yu, Fan Lin, Meni, and Feng Cheng, did you all touch Xianghua's body? Chapter 886. His body was sprinkled with a colorless and odorless poison. You guys should have touched him, right? She stared at them and saw their faces change. Yes, we all moved the body in to check, but I didn't find any poison, Fan Lin said with a serious expression. Because he was the one who knew medicine, when he saw Xianghua's body, the others helped to lift it up while he was responsible for checking, but he didn't expect. Fengjiu glanced at them. First, she took Fan Lin's pulse to check what kind of poison he was poisoned with. However, this check made her heart sink because it was not an ordinary poison. This poison was not only colorless and odorless, but it was also slow to take effect. Before it took effect, it was impossible to detect. If she didn't see a dark red color under their eyes, she really wouldn't have known that they were poisoned. Taking back her hand, she didn't speak, but took out a thin glove and a mask from her space. She couldn't detect it on their bodies, but it could be detected on Xianghua's body. She used a tool to collect some fine powder from his fingernails and collar and asked without raising her head, Fan Lin, what are the results of your examination? Master, he suffered hundreds of wounds all over his body, but they were not fatal. The tendons in his 2 legs were broken, his hands were directly twisted, and his body was burned in many places, Fan Lin said, and with every word, the anger in his heart deepened. He was a doctor, and from the wounds on his body, he naturally knew how much torture he had suffered before his death. And these were not the reasons for his death. The reason for his death was the explosion of his golden elixir, and all the tendons in his body were broken. Du Fan examined him and said that he might have been searched by a secret method when he was alive. Perhaps it was because of this that he finally detonated his golden elixir to commit suicide. Fengjiu listened while examining. Just as Fan Lin said, he was tortured before his death, and his divine sense was seriously damaged. There were signs of his soul being searched. After a long time, she stood up and looked at Xianghua's body, killing intent and anger in her heart. She turned and looked at them, saying, Luo Yu, Meni, you move his body to the back of the mountain and burn it. Bury him there. Du Fan, you find the information of the mission Xianghua took and give it to me. Fan Lin, you come with me to make the medicine. The others pay attention to the movements in the manor. The several people separated to do their work. Fengjiu took Fan Lin to the pharmacy, intending to detoxify them first. "Tell me what's wrong with your body, and let me check it," she said while preparing the matter at hand.
Yes.
Fan Lin responded, and did as she said. He helped her to make the antidote, and at the same time, to stimulate the poison in his body as soon as possible. After about an hour, the antidote still had not been made, and he could no longer hold on. "Master, it seems that the poison has taken effect. I can't see anything in front of me. I can't breathe, my whole body." Before he finished speaking, he had already collapsed. Seeing this, Fengjiu caught him and put him on the ground. She quickly used needles to seal several major acupoints in his body and checked him again. After finding the symptoms, she picked the medicine and made it. Chapter 887. After taking the antidote and pricking his acupoints with golden needles, the purple color on Fan Lin's face gradually faded after a few breaths. At this moment, Du Fan's voice came from outside. "Master, I've brought all the information."
Come in.
Fengjiu put away the golden needles and looked at Du Fan. Seeing that the poison hadn't acted up yet, he handed him the antidote. "This is the antidote. Don't run your qi for an hour after taking it."
Yes.
He took the antidote and handed over the information. "Take the antidote here to Luo Yu and the others." She took the information and went outside to read it. She saw that there was only a simple task on the information, but this task didn't seem to have any problems and wasn't dangerous. The problem was that this task was to guide people, and Xianghua was assigned to do this task. Why did he guide him to do this task? The task was fake, and the real purpose was to lure him to death, right? Then why did he lure Xianghua to death? Why did he have to search his soul? Who was he? If he could capture a cultivator at the peak of the Golden Core realm alive and search his soul, this person must have the cultivation of the nascent soul realm. Oh no, oh no. Bai Xiao hurriedly ran in from outside. His expression changed slightly, and his face was full of panic. When he saw Fengjiu, who was guarding the manor, he hurriedly said, "Someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain." Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed, and a cold light flashed through his eyes. "Someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain?" "Yes. Many of them are men in black. A ground-drilling mouse I tamed some time ago told me that they sneaked in and hid in the forest. Our manor is guarded by Lung Shuang and the others. Those people haven't come yet, but we don't know what they want to do. What should we do? What should we do now?" He was a little worried. There were only a few of them in the manor, and a few of them were poisoned. Xianghua was dead, but before they could find out who did it, someone sneaked in from the back of the mountain. What did they want to do? It was obvious that they were coming for them. Just as he was speaking, a small grayish-white mouse with a fist in its fist came out of his arms, squeaking as it scurried around his body. Fengjiu glanced at the little mouse, closed the information in his hand, and said, "Don't you know how to tame beasts? I'll leave the back of the mountain to you. Watch it for me." He stared blankly for a moment. Seeing her cold face and cold killing intent, he immediately replied, "Yes." He knew how to tame beasts. He wasn't a useless person. There were at least hundreds of ferocious beasts and spirit beasts in the back of the mountain. Even if his combat ability wasn't good, his tame. Calm. Fengjiu turned around and said a few words to Du Fan, asking him to take care of the people who had not fully recovered from the poison, and went to the front. When she came to the front, she saw Lung Shuang and Lung Hua patrolling around the manor. When they saw her come out, they walked over. "Master," the two of them called out. Just as they were about to speak, Fengjiu called them in. "Is there any movement in front?" Fengjiu asked. "I didn't see anyone, but it seems like someone activated the array. I went out to take a look. The atmosphere outside the manor is not right. It's like a lot of people have surrounded us and are staring at us." Chapter 888.
Yes.
The two of them replied and looked at each other. "You guys guard the manor. I'll go outside and take a look." As she spoke, she walked out of the formation and arrived outside. As she watched the leaves around her move without any wind, her lips curled into a cold, bloodthirsty smile. What's the point of hiding?
Why?
You don't dare to show your face? Haha, you're Xianghua's new master? Chu Baishan's successor? A sinister voice sounded. Then, a man wearing a black cloak with a long scar on his face walked out. As the man walked out, the men in black who were hidden in the surrounding trees also walked out and followed behind him. They no longer hid their aura, and evil aura spread out. The bloodthirsty and evil aura and the blood aura of these people made Fengjiu realize at a glance that these people were evil cultivators. And they were evil cultivators with decent strength. Other than the leader, who was a nascent soul cultivator, the dozens of people behind him were all golden core cultivators. The people surrounding the Manor's array entrance were all foundation establishment cultivators. They were not from the Qingting Kingdom. To be exact, the Qingting Kingdom did not have evil cultivators with such strength. These people were, at least, from a third-class country. You killed my people? She was surprised that she could still use such a calm and gentle tone to ask. You mean that Xianghua? Ha! The leader of the nascent soul cultivators laughed and stared at Fengjiu. I asked him to submit to me, but he refused. So I asked my people to teach him a lesson. But it was too boring. So I personally searched his soul. He was also stupid. He actually detonated himself. Haha, really stupid. I wanted to throw his body to the wild beasts to gnaw on. But I thought of some useful information from the soul search and wanted to give you a gift. How about it? Are you satisfied with my gift? The man stared at Fengjiu, and his voice was cold with a trace of madness.
Fengjiu, right?
Hand over the ancient divine sword, azure tip, and perhaps I'll leave all of your corpses intact. Otherwise, haha. Hearing his words, Fengjiu's eyes flickered, and he laughed coldly. So you're saying that you're here for the azure edge sword? I'm curious. How did you find us? But I'm not the only one targeting you. The corrupt paths people are all targeting your Qingfeng sword. Brat, if you don't have the strength to take it, then you're courting death. That person's black figure instantly shot out, clawing at Fengjiu. Fengjiu narrowed her eyes slightly as she stared at the incoming claw. The air around her body surged. She stood there without moving, but her killing intent and intimidating aura instantly shot out. With a move of her hand, the Qingfeng sword appeared in her hand. A sharp green light shot out, giving off a cold and frightening aura. With a wave of her hand holding the sword, the Qingfeng sword, which was different from ordinary swords, struck out like a large blade, bringing with it a strong gust of wind.
Swish, swish, swish.
The frightening gust of wind swept out in an instant. For a moment, some of the black-clothed men who couldn't dodge in time were cut in half. Some of the more agile ones fell to the ground and narrowly avoided the attack. However, when the black-clothed men who narrowly avoided the attack stood up, they were so shocked that they broke out in cold sweat. They stared at the Qingfeng sword in disbelief. Chapter 889. The evil cultivator in black who had dodged stared at the Qingfeng sword in Fengjiu's hand with a dark expression. His eyes were filled with intense greed and excitement. This is the power of the Qingfeng sword? It's really not bad at all. As expected of an ancient divine sword. He stared at Fengjiu's sword and laughed sinisterly. As his laughter spread out, the airflow in the air fluctuated due to his pressure, becoming heavy and difficult to breathe. His laughter was especially eerie in the night. Fengjiu did not stare at anyone else. Her gaze was only fixed on the evil cultivator in the lead. Since he was the one who killed Xianghua, then she would make him pay with his blood. The red figure surged with spiritual power in the night. The dazzling flame-like airflow wrapped around her, making her look extremely dazzling. Even in the night, one could see her at a glance. She held the Qingfeng sword and pointed it diagonally to the ground. Her gaze slowly narrowed, and her cold and eerie voice carried a gloomy and intense bloodthirst as it spread out in the night. You have to pay the price for killing my people. As soon as her voice fell, the red figure swept out like a ghost. If it were not for the fiery airflow surging around her body, No one would be able to catch her movements. In that instant, everyone felt an earth-shattering murderous aura burst out from the red-clothed youth. The murderous aura was like a torrential river that was about to engulf them. What shocked them the most was that within the murderous aura, there was an ancient pressure that made their hearts tremble. "I'll let you have a taste of death by 1,000 cuts." An icy voice rang out from Feng Jiu's mouth, accompanied by the destructive sword aura from the azure edge sword. With a whoosh, the air seemed to have been sliced in half by the ancient divine sword. The azure light drew an arc from the bottom and slashed towards the nascent soul cultivator at a speed that was too fast for one's ears to react to. The nascent soul stage evil cultivator was also shocked by Fengjiu's pressure and murderous aura. A light flashed through his eyes, and because he could not dodge in time, he could only roll on the ground. However, he was still affected by the terrifying sword aura, and countless wounds of different sizes instantly appeared on his body. Smelling the faint smell of blood in the air and feeling the slight pain in his body, he laughed cruelly. He stared at Feng Jiujia and laughed. Haha, that eerie laughter eventually turned into loud laughter. The powerful nascent soul pressure spread out from the laughter, causing the people behind him to cover their ears and cry out in pain as they quickly retreated. The aura of an ancient divine beast. Haha, it's actually the aura of an ancient divine beast. He opened his hands wide and laughed towards the sky. When his laughter stopped, he suddenly looked at Fengjiu with a strange light of excitement in his eyes. "Not only do you have the Qingfeng sword, you also have an ancient divine beast. That means, as long as I kill you and crush your soul, everything will be mine." "Everything will be mine, haha. That will depend on whether you have the ability to do so." Chapter 890. Brat, you want to kill me? You're not qualified. Fengjiu smirked as she saw the evil cultivator charging towards her. "Then I'll show you whether I'm qualified or not." As soon as she finished speaking, she no longer concealed her cultivation and aura. In an instant, the aura of the peak of the foundation establishment stage spread out from her body. A powerful ancient pressure also surged out like a flood under her release, turning into a ferocious beast that pounced towards the nascent soul stage evil cultivator. Hiss! This is. He sucked in a breath of cold air, his eyes filled with disbelief. As a nascent soul cultivator, he could sense the ancient aura from the young man's aura. Naturally, he could also sense that the aura of a peak foundation establishment cultivator emanating from the young man's body contained a terrifying aura. That was the aura of the Heavenly Tao. Could it be that he's actually a Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment cultivator? The powerful aura from the ancient aura enveloped his entire body. He could only feel the aura of death enveloping his head. His body stiffened for a moment, but at that moment, a green light flashed before his eyes and a sharp pain shot through his spine. Hiss! The moment the green sword swung down, a bloody arm flew out. It spun a few times in the air before landing 10 meters away. A shrill scream pierced through the air and traveled into everyone's ears. Hiss! How is this possible? The Jindan stage evil cultivators and Foundation establishment stage evil cultivators who were 10 meters away were all shocked by the scene. They all widened their eyes in disbelief as they watched the severed arm fly through the air and smash into the ground that was covered with fine sand and stones. The evil cultivator clutched his severed arm and retreated step by step. His eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. He didn't expect Fengjiu to be so fast, nor did he expect that a nascent soul cultivator like him would have his arm chopped off by a Foundation establishment cultivator. The sharp pain from his body and the warm blood on his hand that was clutching his severed arm clearly told him that this wasn't fake. This was real. His hand had really been chopped off by this youth. Fengjiu stood against the wind with her sword in hand. In the night, her red robes fluttered, and a bloodthirsty aura spread from between her brows. She stared at the nascent soul evil cultivator in front of her and raised the Qingfeng sword in her hand, gesturing at him. "You know what? If I had moved my sword just a little bit, I wouldn't have just cut off your arm." Her lips curled into a mocking sneer. Knowing that I have an ancient divine beast and the azure-edged sword, you still dare to provoke me?
Huh.
You're courting death.
All of you, attack. Kill him.
That nascent soul cultivator retreated step by step, but ordered the heretic cultivators behind him to step forward. However, these people were heretic cultivators. After seeing that even a nascent soul cultivator's arm had been chopped off, who would dare to step forward to die? When the nascent soul stage cultivator saw that no one came forward, he angrily turned around and glared at the people who had retreated 10 meters away.
Go.
What are you all standing there for?
Kill him.
However, as soon as he finished speaking, he felt a chill behind his back. A murderous aura attacked him. He immediately turned around and saw the red-robed youth closing in on him with the azure-edged sword in hand. The murderous aura was so fierce that he didn't want to retreat. He gritted his teeth and gathered a sharp chi in his uninjured hand to attack the youth. He turned around and planned to escape first. If he could save his life, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to take his life in the future. You want to leave? Since you're here, don't even think about leaving alive. Chapter 891. The evil cultivators saw that when the nascent soul evil cultivator turned around to escape, the red figure behind him chased after him like a malicious spirit that had crawled out of hell. The person in front fled, and he chased after him. Rumbling sounds could be heard from time to time as the two of them fought. The surrounding trees were shaken and cut down as they fought. Gravel flew everywhere, and the airflow was like a knife. They were so frightened that they did not dare to go forward. Was that red-robed young man really just a Foundation establishment cultivator? How could a Foundation establishment cultivator be a match for a nascent soul cultivator? And he actually beat a nascent soul cultivator into such a sorry state? At this moment, they could not help but want to retreat and escape. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that even the nascent soul cultivator was no match for him, let alone them. Let's go, someone shouted. Seeing that the situation was not good, they planned to escape. However, when they activated their spiritual aura and prepared to leave on their swords, they found that their aura was in a mess and could not be condensed. Oh no! There's poison in the air. One of the Golden Core evil cultivators was proficient in poisons and could be said to be the first to discover the problem. He found that the poison was colorless and odorless. It did not take effect immediately, but it corroded their bodies from the inside, making them unable to condense their spiritual power to escape and unable to fight. This is somewhat similar to my soul-seizing poison. The Golden Core evil cultivator's face changed drastically, and the blood drained from his face. He, who was familiar with poisons, analyzed the symptoms of his body. This poison was somewhat similar to his poison, but it had been modified. However, a person who had been poisoned would not notice it in a short period of time. However, if he tried to condense his spiritual power, he would not be able to condense it. Forcefully condensing it would only speed up the poison's flow in his blood. He suddenly retreated and looked at the young man who was fighting with the nascent soul cultivator in horror. It's him. He was the one who sprinkled the poison in the air when they were unknowingly and defenseless. He trembled as he took out the antidote pill and wanted to take it. No matter what poison it was, he would take the antidote pill first. However, when they saw him take out the antidote pill and was about to take it, the eyes of the Golden Core evil cultivators beside him turned red. They went forward to snatch it. Give me the antidote pill. Give it to me. Give it to me. None of them dared to use their spiritual power and aura. They actually forcefully fought over the treasures. They were like shrews and did not look like cultivators at all. However, these people were evil cultivators and did not care about how others looked at them. Most evil cultivators were selfish and only cared about themselves. Why would they care about the lives of others? Just then, a strange melody came from the night. The sound was thin, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, coming from afar. Just as they were wondering which reckless person was playing music in this place in the middle of the night, they heard a chaotic roar. Roar! Roar! roared. The roars of the ferocious beasts were exceptionally clear in the darkness of the night. The heavy and disorderly footsteps were like muffled thunder, causing the ground to shake. When those people saw the ferocious beasts that they normally wouldn't even frown in the slightest, their faces turned deathly pale and filled with terror. It's a vicious beast. Damn it. Why are there so many vicious beasts? Hundreds of vicious beasts rushed out. Some quickly surrounded them, and some pounced on them to bite them. For a moment, they cried out in alarm and tried to escape. However, they found that the path was blocked by hundreds of vicious beasts and spiritual beasts. Chapter 892. Behind him, Lung Shuang and the others also walked out. There were traces of battle on their bodies. Obviously, they had fought with the person who had sneaked into the back of the mountain. "Master, the people in the back of the mountain have been dealt with," Bai Xiao shouted. Seeing that the nascent soul cultivator was being defeated by her, she picked up the musical instrument in her hand and put it to her mouth. As the sound of the musical instrument rang out, the ferocious beasts pounced on the cultivators crazily and bit them. They didn't need to do anything. The evil cultivators who couldn't use their spiritual power to fight were all torn to pieces by the ferocious beasts' claws. Shrill screams and the strong smell of blood filled the air. In less than half an hour, the ground was covered in blood and flesh. None of the evil cultivators survived. Bai Xiao and the others looked in the direction of the scream. They saw that one of the nascent soul cultivator's legs had been chopped off by the Qingfeng sword. He flew out and fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Fengjie walked closer and looked at the evil cultivator who was struggling and wailing on the ground. Murderous intent surged in his eyes. "Have you thought about how you want to die?" The evil cultivator had one of his arms and one of his legs chopped off. He couldn't dodge or escape. He could only sit there and stare at Fengjie, who was full of murderous intent.
Who are you?
How can a Peak Foundation establishment cultivator injure me to this extent? Who are you? Huh? How dare you provoke me when you don't even know who I am? She sneered and pointed the sharp sword in her hand at his dantian. Don't even think about trying to escape with your nascent soul. Not many people I want to kill can escape. The nascent soul cultivator's face was ghastly pale. Cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. He stared at Fengjie in front of him and smiled sinisterly. He gritted his teeth and wanted to explode and kill himself. Unexpectedly, Fengjie, who had already seen through his intentions, shot out a few silver needles. The evil cultivator fell to the ground, as if he had lost consciousness. "Take him back. Don't let him die so easily," she said coldly. She glanced at the dead evil sorcerers around her and said to the few of them, "Clean this up." Then, she walked into the manor. Even after killing those people, she still couldn't let it go. After killing those people, Xianghua would not come back to life. He hadn't been by her side for a long time, but his oath seemed to still echo in her mind. However, such a person was now dead. She knew that this was only the beginning and not the end. As long as she walked down this path, the people around her could face all of this. They could be implicated by her and die because of her. Everyone watched as she walked into the manor with the Qingfeng sword in hand. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts, but they didn't know what to say. They could only listen to her and deal with this place first. Xianghua's death was a blow to them, but also a warning. It let them know that if someone really wanted to kill them and set them up, with their current strength, they really could only be trampled on. Those who are seriously injured go back and bandage them. Those who are lightly injured, follow me to clean up the scene. Du Fan said, and led a few people who were lightly injured to deal with the corpses outside. Chapter 893. It was destined to be a sleepless night. It was already midnight by the time they cleaned up the area outside. After returning to the courtyard, Fengjie calmed down for a while and went to the dungeon. She looked at the unconscious nascent soul evil cultivator in the dungeon. "Drag him out," she gestured. Du Fan and Lung Shuang, who were behind her, stepped forward and dragged him out. Looking at the unconscious nascent soul evil cultivator, she narrowed her eyes and walked up to him. She reached out her hand and touched the top of his head. Soul searching was a technique that was not accepted and very few people would use. The person who had his soul searched would become a useless person. His spirit would be damaged, and he could only be an idiot. Therefore, very few people would use soul searching. However, people still used this technique on evil cultivators and those who had secrets. She closed her eyes and used her hand to search his head with her divine sense. The information in his mind flashed through her mind without any concealment. The words he had said, the things he had done, the things she knew, and the things she did not know, were all entered into her divine sense. After a long time, she opened her eyes and withdrew her hand. She turned and walked out, leaving a sentence, "Take him to the ferocious beasts as a snack." Lung Shuang followed behind her and left. Du Fan responded and dragged the unconscious man to the back of the mountain. They gathered in the hall late that night. Fengjiu told them some things and asked them to be careful when they went out for missions in the future. She also told them that the evil cultivator knew that she had obtained the Qingfeng sword through soul searching. He probably wanted to keep it for himself. The news had not spread yet, so they just needed to pay more attention to the movements of other parties. Finally, she said to Luoyu, "Go to the Cool Breeze Gang after daybreak and tell Rinxiang that there is a force secretly plotting to take over the power of Yandian. Ask him to be careful, and ask him if he has safely sent the son of Yandian to the people who will receive him." "Yes, master. Don't worry. I will leave at daybreak," Luoyu replied. Fengjiu nodded, then got up and returned to her room. After she left, the others were still sitting in the hall, discussing matters. It wasn't until the evening of the next day that Luoyu returned and inquired, "Is master still in the courtyard? Or did he return to the academy?" "He's still in the courtyard, but he hasn't come out since last night." Fan Lin sighed softly and asked, "How is the matter that master asked you to do coming along?" "Yes, I've passed on the message and asked master what he wanted to know. I was just about to report back to master. He said, I'll go to master's courtyard to take a look." "I'll go too." Fan Lin immediately followed. When they arrived at the courtyard, both Lung Hua and Lung Shuang were there. They asked, "Where's master? Still not out yet?" "You're looking for her? I'll go and report," Lung Hua said, then knocked on the door and called, "Master, Brother Luo is back." There was no movement in the room. After a while, the door opened and Fengjiu, dressed in red, walked out. She glanced at the people in the courtyard, then her gaze fell on Luoyu. Seeing this, Luoyu hurriedly reported, "Master, I've passed on the message. Rinxiang said that he has safely sent the son of Yandian to the people who will receive him, so you don't have to worry." Chapter 894. Seeing that she was about to leave, everyone escorted her out of the manor. They watched as she rode on Laobai's back and left with Tun Yun. They stood there for a long time before returning to the manor. Although they were master and servant, their master treated them like family. They all knew that their master was very sad to see Xianghua killed. After all, everyone who followed her was carefully selected by her. Now they were all gone. Thinking of this, everyone secretly made up their minds. They had to work hard and cultivate. They had to become stronger as soon as possible. The next morning, Fengjiu returned to the academy after a trip to the black market. She walked through the academy's main gate and went straight to her cave residence. The academy had started school at the beginning of February, and the students had all returned. However, it was still early, and there were not many students walking around in the academy. After returning to the academy and reporting, she did not go out again. Every day, if she was not cultivating in her cave residence, she was refining pills and making medicine. Half a month had passed. One day, the dean sent someone to summon her. "Dean, Vice Dean." When she arrived at the main peak, she bowed to the two of them. She swept her gaze around and saw that Imo Chun was also by the side, but she nodded slightly. When she saw Imo-chan return a faint smile, she looked away. I heard that you came back a while ago, but I haven't seen you around the academy. I called you here today to tell you that in 3 days, the 10 students you've selected will be following the vice headmaster and several mentors to participate in the ranking competition between the academies. Are you ready?
Who are the other 9 people?
She asked. The dean smiled and said, 2 of the top 10 geniuses of the academy have been squeezed out by you and Xiaoyi-han. The others have not changed. We originally planned to let your brother participate, but he hasn't returned yet. He only sent a message saying that he went to another country with the mercenaries from the black market. He probably won't be back in a short time, so he didn't get a spot. Hearing this, her eyes flickered. Her brother hasn't returned yet? In the past half a month, she had not paid attention to this. She had only focused on cultivating and refining pills. She was not in the mood to care about anything else. I'm fine. We're leaving in 3 days, right? I understand. She nodded and said, then go back and prepare. We'll meet at the plaza in 3 days. Okay, then I'll go back first. She replied and turned to leave. Returning to the cave residence, she saw White and Tunyun lying outside the cave residence. She walked over and said, I'm going to participate in the school tournament in 3 days. Do you 2 want to stay here or go into the space? I want to follow Master. I can enter the space, but I don't want to stay here. Old White said anxiously. I want to follow Master as well, Tunyun said. Only the big black bear at the side didn't know what they were talking about. It tilted its head and looked at them in a daze. Old White's body is too big. He can't come out after entering the space. As for Tunyun, he doesn't need to enter the space. He can just stay by my side. She looked at the 2 beasts and then looked at the big black bear. She patted its head and said, Little Black, do you want to go back to the forest?
Roar.
It let out a low roar and hugged the tree beside it, indicating that it did not want to go back. Chapter 895. Whoa. She didn't know whether the big black bear understood or not, but it howled and came to her side to rub against her, showing a close attitude. Looking at it stretching out its clumsy bear claws and waving them in front of her, Fengjiu couldn't help but be amused, revealing her first smile in nearly half a month. Well, that's it. I'll go back and refine some things just in case. She patted the heads of the 3 beasts around her and was about to return to the cave when she heard Yi Jing's voice. Fengjiu. She turned around and looked at the person. Yi Jing? Why are you here? Yi Jing came to her side and said, I know you've been back for half a month, but you've been cultivating in the cave and haven't come out, so I didn't come to disturb you. I just heard that the dean was looking for you, so I wanted to come and have a look. I know that you're also among the 10 places this time. You're going back so far and will be gone for so long. Fortunately, you're going with me. Well, since I came back, I've been in the cave and didn't go out. I just found out that we'll be leaving in 3 days. She pulled her to sit down at the table under the tree. My brother may have missed it this time. I guess he tripped over something. Otherwise, he wouldn't have missed this opportunity.
Yes.
We originally agreed to participate together, but I didn't expect him to not come back yet. Speaking of this, she sighed softly and said with some worry, I don't know if he encountered any danger outside. Going out with the mercenaries of the black market, the degree of danger is not low. It doesn't matter. He will have a sense of propriety. Even if he misses this time, there will be other opportunities in the future. Fengjiu, I heard that the people in the second-class countries are very strong. In fact, I'm a little worried that I won't even be able to enter the top 20 this time. She looked at her and said, This school tournament is a competition between the students from the 6th class and 2nd class countries to compete for their ranking list. Only we are from the 6-star academy. I'm really worried. The world is so big. It's normal for someone to be stronger than us. No matter what the result of the tournament is, as long as we try our best. She said with a smile. Yi Jing nodded her head and took out the Spiritual Academy's white uniform. Director Liu asked me to bring this for you. Other than being a student of the Alchemy Department, you are also a student of the Spiritual Academy. He wants you to wear the Spiritual Academy's uniform when you go out. Okay. She took the 2 sets of clothes and put them away in her space. Then I'll leave first. She said goodbye to him. Fengjiu sent her off, and after she left, she returned to her cave to refine pills. Until 3 days later. Under the lead of the vice principal, Director Liu, the 10 students of the academy gathered at the plaza one after another. Many students came to send them off. When Fengjiu brought Tunyan to the plaza, she saw that 10 people had already arrived. Other than Nietung, Xiao Yihan, and Yi Jing, there were also a few people that she had seen before. Almost all of them were students of the spiritual academy. She roughly looked around and saw that there were 9 people, including her, but Ouyang Xiu's figure was nowhere to be seen. After looking around, she saw a figure coming from not far away. Fengjiu, you're here? Yi Jing came to her side. Seeing her looking at Ouyang Xiu, she also looked at him. Chapter 896. My dear disciple, you're here too? Fengjiu went up to greet him. Seeing his ashen and embarrassed expression, she couldn't help but laugh. Don't you need to greet your master when you see him? Quick, let's hear it. Her voice wasn't too loud, but it was heard by everyone around. They all looked at the two of them in astonishment. What was going on? How did he become the master of the disciple? Did the relationship between the two of them improve? They remembered that last year, Ouyang Sr. kept saying that he wanted to challenge Fengjiu, but he didn't succeed in the end. Could it be that something happened that they didn't know about when they didn't know? Don't go too far. He stared at the person in front of him who was laughing so hard that his eyes narrowed into a line and warned in a low voice. AI, you are the one who is willing to do this. How can you say that I'm going too far? Don't you know that a teacher for a day is a teacher for life? Since you called me master, then you're my disciple. Don't worry, I'll recognize you. She chuckled and looked at him with a teasing tone. Ouyang Xiu opened his mouth, but found that he couldn't find the words to reply. In the end, he just snorted. Don't worry, I'll definitely defeat you. As soon as his voice fell, he walked past him and stood behind the vice president. Seeing this, Fengjiu crossed her arms and smiled. This disciple of hers really wanted to save face. He obviously wasn't her opponent. Fengjiu, why did you call Ouyang Sr. your disciple? You and him. Yi Jing was curious. Last year, she was still avoiding him. Why did it seem like Ouyang Xiu was avoiding her now? Oh, didn't he keep saying that he wanted to challenge me last year? Then he ran halfway to stop me. In the end, I said that if he lost, he had to call me master. So when I won, he naturally became my disciple. Speaking of this, the smile on her face deepened. Hearing this, Yi Jing nodded. So that's how it is. Strange. Isn't everyone here? Who are they waiting for?
She asked.
Seeing that the 10 students had all arrived, even the vice president and 2 teachers had arrived, but they didn't seem to have any intention of leaving. It seemed like they were still waiting for someone? I don't know. Maybe there are other instructors who haven't come yet. Fengjiu. Xiao Yihan walked over with large strides. Just as he was about to pat her shoulder and greet her, he remembered that she was a woman and could not help but retract his hand in embarrassment. I heard that you have been cultivating ever since you came back. Has your cultivation increased greatly recently? Seeing that it was him, she smiled and said, Not really. I've been concocting pills a lot recently. You, on the other hand, your cultivation has improved a lot after not seeing you for a while. Ha ha ha, that's right. I've worked hard. I was going to compete with Guan Shilin, but he hasn't come back since he went out this time. It's a pity that he even missed the school tournament. There will be more opportunities. Who knows, my brother might be training outside right now, which is even better than us in this academy. I don't deny that. Outside, it's a real fight. However, with his strength outside, aren't you worried? Seeing that she didn't look worried at all, he couldn't help but feel strange. It stood to reason that the relationship between the two was so good. Guan Shilin had been training outside for so long and hadn't come back. She should be anxious. Chapter 897. The white figure walked over from a distance. His steps were light and steady, and his figure was graceful. His clothes fluttered in the wind, making him look like an immortal descending to the mortal world. When he appeared, many of the surrounding female students had red hearts in their eyes as they looked at him with gazes of adoration, shyness, and excitement. However, the immortal-like man didn't seem to notice the people around him. His gaze swept past Feng Jiu's face indifferently, taking in her astonishment. A smile seemed to appear at the corner of his lips. He slowly walked to the front of the vice-headmaster and said a few words to him. The vice-headmaster looked at everyone and said, "Since everyone is here, let's go."
Yes.
Everyone responded. Just as they were about to walk out of the academy's gate, a voice suddenly sounded out.
Wait.
Everyone was startled as they turned around to see a student of the academy. Some people recognized him as one of the academy's top 10 students. However, other than Xiao Yihan, who took the top 3 spot, the person at the bottom was pushed out because of Feng Jiu. Unlike Xiao Yihan, who had obtained a spot through a challenge, Feng Jiu had not fought with anyone in the top 10 and was directly selected by the dean. Therefore, other than a few people who knew about her strength, the majority of the people were puzzled and unconvinced about Feng Jiu's participation in the academy's competition. It's Senior Geng. This time, because Feng Jiu was selected, Senior Geng, who was ranked 10th, was pushed out. Senior Geng's strength wasn't only ranked 10th, but last year's ranking was overtaken. This year, his ranking was lowered, and he was ranked 10th. Therefore, he wasn't able to participate in the academy's competition. However, I feel that his strength is stronger than Feng Jiu's. That's right, I think so too. However, it could be that Feng Jiu's background is stronger than Senior Geng's. Otherwise, Senior Geng wouldn't have been pushed out without even competing. It's said that Feng Jiu came from a 9th-tier country. However, something happened last year, and the entire academy's teachers were sent to save him. I feel that his background isn't ordinary. Let's not talk about that. Look at Student Geng's posture. Don't tell me he wants to challenge Feng Jiu here? He's already been selected, so how could the vice head allow him to mess around? Hearing this, everyone's gazes fell on Senior Geng and then looked at Feng Jiu. They were all wondering if the two of them were going to fight. Is there something you need? The vice head looked at the student surnamed Geng and asked. Vice head, I refuse to accept this. His voice was deep, making his intentions clear. His gaze swept past the crowd and landed on Feng Jiu. What right does he have to represent the academy in the competition? I'm not convinced. He's just a new student who came in last year. How could he be stronger than me? I'm not convinced. I want to challenge him. Hearing those words, the vice school head frowned. These are the rules of the academy. We have our own reasons for replacing you. You may return now. Don't delay our departure time. There was a hint of displeasure in his voice. He was well aware of Feng Jiu's strength. It could be said that among the 10 students, Feng Jiu was the one he and the dean valued the most. The only reason they had a chance to enter the top 3 was because of Feng Jiu. Chapter 898. Could it be that he's stronger than me? He asked in a calm voice, unwilling to accept this. Among the 10 students, Nie Teng, Ouyang Xiao, and Xiao Yihan all glanced at him when they heard this. The two in front didn't say anything, but their gazes were filled with contempt. As for Xiao Yihan, he sneered when he heard this. Don't you know that he's stronger than you? If it weren't for the fact that he's stronger, you wouldn't have been pushed down. As for Feng Jiu, he stood beside Yi Jing as if it had nothing to do with him. The two of them were whispering to each other, but no one knew what they were talking about. Hearing Xiao Yihan's words, the student surnamed Geng pursed his lips, clearly not believing it. Thus, his gaze fell on Feng Jiu, who was wearing the Spiritual Academy's uniform. Feng Jiu, do you dare to compete with me? If I lose, I'll accept it wholeheartedly. Otherwise, I won't let you off. Seeing him yell at him, Feng Jiu sighed in his heart. He glanced at him and said, but you really aren't my opponent. I'm really embarrassed to fight someone weaker than me. Hearing this, the student surnamed Geng's face darkened. You. Enough. Are you done with your nonsense? The Vice Academy had yelled in a deep voice, his sharp gaze sweeping over the student surnamed Gung. You're not his opponent. Our decision was made after discussion. We naturally knew what we were doing when we let him replace you. Moreover, he was already a foundation establishment cultivator last year. Do you think that a great spirit master like you can be a match for a foundation establishment cultivator? Hearing this, the student surnamed Gung was dumbfounded. Foundation establishment cultivator? Fengjiu? He's already a foundation establishment cultivator? How? How is this possible? Not only him, but the surrounding students were also stunned. They couldn't believe it. After all, he just entered last year. How could he have already reached foundation establishment last year? They hadn't heard of him before? If this was really a secret, wasn't it too good? Yes, I can testify that Fengjiu is indeed a foundation establishment cultivator. Let alone you. Even I am no match for her. Yi Jing said. She was ranked 5th in the top 10 and was stronger than Gung. However, she was no match for Fengjiu, let alone Yi Jing. When the student surnamed Gung heard this, he was startled and speechless for a long time. He could only stare blankly at Fengjiu. All right, let's go. Don't be late. With that, the vice president strode out. This time, he stood there and watched, but did not open his mouth to protest. No matter how arrogant he was and how much he didn't want to admit it, he knew that if the vice president and Yi Jing said so, then it was most likely true. Everyone else watched as they left, and when they reached the entrance, the vice-chancellor waved his sleeve, and a spacecraft appeared in front of them. Everyone get on the spacecraft. The vice-chancellor said, letting everyone get on first. The 10 people who were selected, in addition to being the top 10 in the academy, also had good family backgrounds. Naturally, they didn't find the spacecraft novel. Therefore, each one of them calmly walked up. Finally, the 2 mentors, the vice-chancellor and Mo Chun, boarded the spacecraft together. The spacecraft floated off the ground and flew into the sky. The people outside the gate watched for a long time before coming back to their senses. They looked on enviously as the spacecraft disappeared into the clouds. Then they turned around and returned to the academy. In time, they would also be able to go to a second-class country, or even a first-class country, and enter a 1-star academy. Chapter 899. The 2-star academy was located in a second-class country near the Scarlet Spirit Mountain Range and was built on a mountain. The area it occupied was several times larger than that of the Qingtung 6-star academy. Every star class was different, so the resources were also different. Even the teachers and students were different. Living in a 2-star academy, everyone had a sense of pride in their hearts. Pride that they were from a 2-star academy, pride that they were superior to others. On this day, the people of the 2-star academy arrived by airship one after another. As the host, the people of the 2-star academy naturally took up the job of receiving them. Therefore, inside and outside the academy, students and teachers could be seen everywhere. When the Vice Academy head landed the airship, the people on the airship followed behind him and walked down. Looking at the majestic entrance of the academy, they could not help but be secretly surprised. The 2 huge stars on the entrance of the academy seemed to be made out of spirit stones. Under the sunlight, they reflected a dazzling light. The magnificent entrance of the academy was wide open, and at a glance, one could see the prosperity inside. How should I address you? May I know which academy you are from? One of the teachers came forward and asked. His eyes swept over the crowd and saw a handsome man and a beautiful woman, but after looking at them for a second or two, he moved his eyes away. In the world of immortal cultivation, there was no shortage of handsome men and beautiful women. We are from the 6-star academy. This old man's surname is Guan, and I am the Vice Academy, head of the 6-star academy. These are the teachers leading the team. Old man Guan gave a simple introduction. Oh, so you are from the 6-star academy. The teacher nodded and smiled, and called several students. You take the teachers and students of the 6-star academy to settle down first, and then arrange for a few people to familiarize themselves with the academy.
Yes.
Several students responded and made a gesture to the Vice Academy head and the others. The Vice Academy head nodded and followed them with the people behind him. This two-star academy is really different, just look at the construction inside. Xiao Yihan walked and looked around and praised again and again. Look at the ground. Isn't this a spiritual gathering array? But it seems to be somewhat different. Moreover, the spiritual power aura here is really abundant. Well, if a two-star academy is like this, then a one-star academy would be even better. Feng Jiu also said with a smile. She looked around and saw that the students here were all wearing the same white uniform. The only difference was that they had 6-star badges on their clothes, while the other party had 2-star badges on their clothes. The students who were leading the way introduced the academy to the Vice Academy head and Vice Academy head. While listening to the words of the students behind them, they could not help but sneer in their hearts. Country bumpkins are country bumpkins. The students were divided into 2 groups. One group led the vice headmaster and the mentors to a mountain peak where the mentors lived, while the other group led Feng Nine and the others to where the students lived. The men and women were separated, and the 4 of them stayed in the same courtyard. You 2 female students can stay here. Academy. Inside Academy's Academy of. The 2 male students said to Yi Jing and Zhou Xian. Since the 2 of them were female, their attitudes were relatively better. Chapter 900. Good. After resting for a while, we will go out and familiarize ourselves with the place. Feng Jiu smiled and stood together with the other 7 men. When the 2 male students saw this, they went out and said to Feng Jiu and the others, "Let's go. The men live on the other side." Saying that, they led the way in front. After about the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, they arrived at the other side where the male students lived. It was also a row of courtyards side by side. Many of the people who had arrived earlier had already moved into the courtyard. There were also some who were sitting at the stone table under the trees outside the courtyard, or were walking around. When the students saw that there were people coming, they looked at them one by one. When they saw the 6-star emblem on their clothes, the contempt in their eyes became heavier. It turned out that they were actually people from the 6-star academy. The 6-star academy was the lowest-ranked academy among all the academies present. As such, the people from that place could not even enter their eyes. But this time, most of them did not even put the people from the 6-star academy in their eyes, as they felt that compared to them, they were completely incomparable. Here, you can look around and see if there are any vacant rooms. The 2 male students who were leading the way said, and then led them to the area where the male students lived, and then left. Seeing the 2 people leave only a sentence and then leave, Xiao Yihan shook his head. Sure enough, the men are not as good as the women. They did not even say a word. Saying that, he walked into one of the courtyards. Just as he was about to go in and take a look, he was stopped by one of the men in the courtyard. Our courtyard is already full. Full? Xiao Yihan was startled and said to Feng Jiu behind him, "Let's go to the back and take a look." Feng Jiu complied and also walked to the back. Who would have thought that each courtyard was already occupied? When they wanted to go in, they all got the same sentence, full. After hearing this sentence many times, they could not help but laugh. After walking around, they came to the front of the courtyards. There were 1 or 2 3-star academy students sitting in each courtyard. Seeing them walk around, they raised their chins and looked at them. Feng Jiu crossed his arms over his chest and leaned against the courtyard door. With a smile on his face, he looked at the 2 3-star academy students in the courtyard. "Is this courtyard full?"
Yes.
The 2 people replied. "All right then. Since it's full, let's do something direct." She rubbed her fists and rubbed them. A malicious smile appeared on her face. "What if you came out on your own? Or should we drag you out?" Although she didn't want to start a fight as soon as she arrived at this place, these people were occupying a courtyard by themselves. Wasn't this forcing them to fight? Everywhere was the same. The weak would only end up being bullied, and even if they were from a 6-star academy, but who among them would be bullied by others? Daring to bully them, this was absolutely asking for a beating. When the people in the courtyard heard this, they were stunned for a moment. They looked at them in disbelief and then laughed out loud.
What did you say?
Drag us out? Ha ha ha, just because of your 6-star academy? I'll do it. You guys, do you really think this place is yours? 1 or 2 people wanted to occupy a courtyard. Since they refused to let him out, then he would settle it with his fists. Anyway, my whole body is sore from sitting on the spaceship. I've been wanting to move around for a while now. Xiao Yihan shook his arms and walked in. Chapter 901. The people from the other academies did not move, but when the people from the 3-star academy saw that their academy's people were surrounded, they also surrounded them, and their auras surged. What? You want to compete?
Good.
Our hands are also itching. That's good. How about we go to the open space outside? Fengjiu said with a smile. When it came to fighting, she was not afraid of anyone. Good. Let's see how much weight the people from your 6-star academy have. The people from the 3-star academy coldly snorted and turned around to go to the open space outside, and the others also followed. Those who were originally sitting and chatting, on seeing this, also excitedly surrounded them, intending to watch a good show. Enchanting's sharp eyes swept over those people and stepped forward. How do you want to fight? Ouyang Xiu's face was also cold. He was being bullied. He would not blindly retreat. It was just a fight. Who was afraid of who? Xiao Yihan's face was full of excitement. He had already wanted to test the skills of these people. What was the difference between the students from the 3-star academy and the students from the 6-star academy? The other few people were also the same. They also wanted to take this opportunity to test the strength of the people from the 3-star academy. Only Fengjiu's hands were itchy and wanted to fight. She did not care about their cultivation, no matter how strong they were. They could not be stronger than a nascent soul cultivator. She just wanted to exercise her hands and feet and take the opportunity to give these people a warning. She believed that after this fight, no one would dare to come and find trouble with them. So, what if they were from a 6-star academy? Who said that the strength of the people from the 3-star academy was stronger than them? Well, maybe the strength of these people was not bad. On their side, apart from the last few in the top 10, the strength of the top 5 was not to be underestimated. Hearing Enchanting ask how to fight, she could not help but sneer, glanced at him and said, "You still want to ask them how to fight? Of course it's a melee. The faster we finish, the more we can go back to the courtyard to rest. Do you want to slowly fight them one-on-one?" While speaking, the corners of her mouth hooked up, and she clenched her fist and shouted, "No matter how you fight, just beat them to the ground."
Bang.
One of the 3-star students didn't expect Fengjiu to suddenly attack and was caught off guard. With a bang, his eyes were punched, and he staggered back a few steps before stabilizing himself. He covered his stinging eyes and glared at Fengjiu. "You sneak attacked me." Fengjiu snorted and said arrogantly, "What sneak attack? I was standing right in front of you, swinging my fist. Who can you blame for your slow reaction?" "Damn it!" that person shouted angrily, clenching his fists and rushing forward. Seeing this, the others also joined in the chaotic battle. In an instant, the empty space was occupied by them. Low growls and the sounds of fists landing accompanied by cries of pain rang out, causing the surrounding students to be flabbergasted. This was because they weren't fighting in a proper manner. Instead, they were waving their fists and fighting in a chaotic battle. One of them threw a punch, while the other threw a kick. Some of them hugged their thighs, while others threw a punch at their faces. The fight was so intense that everyone was dumbfounded.
Ah. Roar.
Damn it! Who kicked my butt?
Hiss.
Look closely and hit. Don't hit your own people.
Ah.
Damn it, you brat. Don't keep hitting my face. Chapter 902. Bang. Only by punching the face can you see the effect. While speaking, Fengjiu once again punched out, but this time, the punch landed on the stomach of the male student.
Poof.
The male student cried out in pain. The blow to his abdomen made him bend down instinctively. He lowered his hands to protect his abdomen. But at this moment, another fist flew towards his face. He was so scared that he retreated. Seeing this, Feng grinned and swung her fist. She turned around and punched the face of the student who was about to sneak up on her from behind. That person groaned. He only felt that his cheek was punched. His whole person was somewhat dazed. He felt a salty taste in his mouth. He touched the corner of his mouth and took out a tooth that was mixed with blood. Seeing that tooth, that 3-star student sucked in a breath of cold air. You actually knocked out my teeth too? You brat. I will beat you to death. That student was furious. He threw out his tooth, clenched his fist, and punched towards Fengjiu. However, his fist had not yet landed on Fengjiu's body when Enchanting kicked him away. Enchanting stood beside Fengjiu. He glanced at her and then looked away. In the scuffle, he was not too far away from her. He was almost 3 steps away from her. When she was punching people, he did not intervene, but those who were planning to attack her from behind were kicked away by him. He did not speak. He knew that she did not want him to, therefore, he only silently stood by her side to protect her. However, Fengjiu did not appreciate it. After another student was sent flying, she shouted, "Enough, don't fight." When the few people from the 6-star academy heard her words, they stopped and shrank to the side. On both sides, it was not only the people from the 3-star academy who were beaten up. On Fengjiu's side, in addition to her, Enchanting, Ouyang Xiao, and Xiao Yihan, the other 4 people were also beaten to the point that their faces were bruised, but compared to the people from the 3-star academy, their injuries could be considered light, while the other side's face was completely swollen.
Hiss.
Damn it. Are you really from a 6-star academy? One of the 3-star academy's students clenched his teeth as he glared at them. With that kind of skill, they were even faster than them. Especially those 4 people. Whoever got close to them would only end up being beaten up. How could they not know that the fighting prowess of the people from the 6-star academy had become so strong? Although it was a chaotic battle, it was almost a one-sided beating. It was too infuriating. He is from a 6-star academy, what about it? Fengjiu raised an eyebrow and glanced at the man who was scared by her. Don't worry, we won't be as tasteless as you. 1 or 2 people occupying a courtyard. We only need 2 courtyards, the rest is up to you. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned and walked into the first courtyard. She saw that other than the 2 rooms on the left and right, there were also 2 rooms in the middle. The 2 rooms in the middle were slightly larger, so she chose the one on the left. When Xiao Yihan saw this, he was about to walk into the room on the right, but he saw that a figure was faster than him and chose the room on the left. Ouyang Xiao saw that Fengjiu, Enchanting, and Xiao Yihan were in this courtyard, so he walked out and went directly to the courtyard next door. He did not intend to stay in the same courtyard as Fengjiu, because in this courtyard, he would see him all day long and would not be willing to be taken advantage of by him verbally. So, in the end, the 8 people stayed in this courtyard. 4 people to a courtyard, 1 person to a room, so they had their own space. Chapter 903. Hearing her door open, Xiao Yihan also came out and asked, "Fengjiu, do you want to go out?" "I'll go with you." "Good. Let's call Yi Jing together," she said with a smile and walked out with him. In the other 2 rooms, Enchanting stood at the window, watching the 2 go out, but did not follow. As for the students in the other room, they were resting in their rooms and did not intend to go out. On the other side, the mentors of the academy were talking about the other students of the academy.
Oh.
The students of the 3-star academy and the students of the 6-star academy fought?
Yes.
Some of the students ran over and said that some of the male students from the 3-star academy had occupied 1 or 2 of their courtyards. Later on, the students from the 6-star academy fought with them and ended up in a chaotic battle. It was a complete mess, and some of the students were beaten black and blue. Looking at it, it was very funny. One of the teachers shook his head and said with a smile, "So, in the end, the 6-star academy lost?" "No, the 6-star academy won, but the 3-star academy lost. In the end, several of them could not stand up, but I did not expect that the strength of the 6-star academy students would be so good." "There's such a thing?" Another mentor was somewhat surprised and then said with a smile, This way, it is interesting. I originally thought that this year's ranking would not be interesting, but looking at this year's competition should be very strong. It really makes people look forward to it.
Yes.
The performance of the 6-Star Academy students was quite good. They directly beat up the students of the 3-Star Academy. I believe that in the following days, no one will dare to find trouble with them. Let them come in advance and live in our academy for half a month so that they can secretly compete with each other and also stimulate their fighting strength. I hope that when the time comes, they will not let us down. Oh, no matter what, we will not be able to surpass our 2-Star Academy students to win first place. These few academies matters. Let them go. Don't worry about them. One of the mentors waved his hand. I still have something to do, so I will go back first. Seeing that the mentor left, the other people also left one after another. On the other side, Feng Jiu and Xiao Yihan came to the courtyard where Yi Jing and Zhou Xian lived.
Yi Jing?
Feng Jiu called from outside, but he didn't go in. After a while, Yi Jing's door opened. She walked out and nodded at Feng Jiu before walking to Zhou Xian's room and knocking on the door. Zhou Xian, we're going out for a walk. Do you want to come with us? The door to Zhou Xian's room was also opened. She glanced at Yi Jing in front of the door, then looked at Feng Jiu and Lu Yi, nodding her head. I'll go with you. She was unfamiliar with this place, so it was better to have someone from the same academy as her to keep her company. Then let's go, she said with a smile, and walked out of the courtyard with her. The four of them walked around together, familiarizing themselves with the surrounding environment. They also heard a lot about the 2-Star Academy from the mouths of some of the students. In the evening, the four of them received a jade strip sound transmission from the vice headmaster. The vice-chancellor wants us to go over. He said he has something to tell us. Yi Jing looked at them and said, Yes, we received it too. Let's go back and see what's going on. The few of them said as they walked back together. Chapter 904. When they arrived inside, they saw that not only the vice-headmaster was there but even the 2 teachers and Mo Chun were also there. The other students had already arrived, except for the vice-headmaster, Mo Chun and the 2 teachers who were sitting in the middle of the courtyard. The other students were standing to the side. Vice-headmaster, teacher, young master Mo Chun. Several people came in and greeted them. We came here to talk to you about a matter, the vice-headmaster said, as he looked at the crowd and smiled. At noon, the vice-headmasters and the deans of the 2-Star Academies had a discussion and came up with a plan for the students who came to participate in the competition. He looked at the crowd and said with a smile, The 2-Star Academy has a spiritual land. There is a huge spiritual gathering array. This spiritual gathering array is condensed with spirit stones. Its power is extraordinary. It can almost be said that this spiritual land is the holy land for cultivation in the 2-Star Academy. The spiritual qi in the bodies of the students who cultivate there will be several times faster than outside. After discussing with the deans of the 2-Star Academy, we decided that in this half a month, the participating students will be able to cultivate in the spiritual land for half a month. We will send you in tonight. You should prepare yourselves. In addition, in order to stimulate your cultivation and fighting intent, the deans of the 2-Star Academy will give each of you 10 spirit stones. During the half a month inside, you can rob other people's spirit stones. You can fight, but you are not allowed to kill. After half a month, the one who has the most spirit stones will be exempted from fighting and can directly enter the top 10 competition. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other. Ouyang Xiao asked, Does this mean that the competition will be brought forward? Well, you can say that. The vice-headmaster stroked his beard and nodded in agreement. Only half a month's time we have to protect the spirit stones and also rob the spirit stones. There is simply no time to cultivate. Feng Jiu frowned. He felt that even if he entered such a place, he wouldn't have the time to cultivate just by guarding against others. How would he have the time to cultivate? Ha ha ha. This spiritual land is the holy land of the 2-Star Academy. Even the students of the 2-Star Academy are not allowed to enter. It is already not easy for them to let you in. They certainly will not say that they will give you a complete time to cultivate inside. After all, Even if the spiritual power inside is abundant, it is still condensed by the spirit stones and the spirit stones used in the spiritual gathering array. The more people go in, the more spiritual power they will absorb. The more spirit stones and the spirit gathering array will consume. The vice head smiled and looked at them. The place with the most abundant spiritual qi in the spirit realm is the place with the spiritual qi gathering array. If you can find it and cultivate there, I believe it will be of great help to you. All right, go back to your rooms and prepare. We'll wait for you outside. As soon as his voice fell, he walked out with the two mentors. When Chen walked out, he glanced at Fengjiu, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything and just followed the vice headmaster out. Ting's eyes were cold as he stared at the departing figure of Chen, and then glanced at Fengjiu, before he turned around and entered his room. Yi Jing, Zhou Xian, do you need to go back to your rooms? If you have something in your room, it would be better to take it with you. Fengjiu looked at the two of them and said. The two of them shook their heads. No, we haven't taken out our things yet. We are taking them with us. Chapter 905. The 10 people came outside. Fengjiu did not want to bring the swallowing cloud into the spiritual land, so he entrusted it to the vice headmaster to take care of it. The group of people came to the designated place, where the people from the other academies had already arrived. When they saw them, especially the students from the 3-star academy, their faces were still bruised and swollen as they stared hatefully at them. Fengjiu and the others did not pay attention to them, but their eyes fell on the 10 people from the 2-star academy. There were 8 men and 2 women. All of them were wearing the same white robes, with 2 stars on their robes. Seeing the 10 people, except for Fengjiu, the other people slightly frowned, because the strength of these 10 people was very strong. 8 of them were Foundation Establishment Cultivators. Among the 8 Foundation Establishment Cultivators, 3 of them were Intermediate Foundation Establishment Cultivators, 1 was Peak Foundation Establishment Cultivator, and the other 2 were not Foundation Establishment Cultivators. But they were still Peak Great Spirit Master Cultivators. With such strength, they were really much stronger than the people from the other academies. If the strength of the people from the other academies could compete with them, then it would be the students from the 2-star academy. When they were sizing up the 10 people were also sizing up Tung and the others. After seeing their cultivation, the 10 people faintly looked away, although they did not say anything, but their expressions were full of arrogance. Compared to them, on the side of the 6-star academy, except for Fengjiu, Tung, Ouying Xiu, and Xiao Yihan, who were Foundation Establishment Cultivators, the rest were all Great Spirit Masters. Moreover, not all of them were Peak Great Spirit Masters. With such strength, the people from the 2-star academy really did not put them in their eyes. The dean and the vice headmaster of the 2-star academy looked at the students in front of them and smiled as they distributed the spirit stones to them. These spirit stones have a specific mark and belong to our 2-star academy's spirit stones. Even if you have some on your body, it will not be mixed together. Well, I believe that your headmasters and the vice headmasters have already explained to you, so I will not say much. You can all enter the transfer array. After entering the transfer array, even the students of the academy will not be in the same place. They will be scattered. The dean of the 2-star academy said with a smile, and let the vice headmaster open the transfer array and send them into the spiritual land.
Go.
Be careful. The vice president and the others looked at Fengjiu and the others. Yes, vice head. I'll have to trouble you to take care of my little beast. She looked at Tun Yun, who was standing beside the vice president. Many people had seen her bring Tun Yun along. If she were to directly put him into her space, she was afraid that it would cause trouble. Thus, she could only leave him in the care of the vice president. I know. The vice had nodded, thinking that the cloud-devouring beast was just a pet. He didn't know that it was a divine beast. The students from the other academies also gave instructions to the other academies before walking into the transmission array. There were a total of 50 students from the 5 academies, so they were divided into 3 groups. The vice headmaster and the others watched as Fengjiu's group disappeared into the transmission array before turning to leave. Little thing, let's go. You've been following me since before your master came out. As he spoke, he picked up the round swallow cloud. However, Mo Chen, who was dressed in a white robe, came forward and said to the vice president, "Leave this little pet to me." This. The vice president hesitated. Chapter 906. I've had nothing to do recently, so I'll pass the time. Saying this, he carried Tan Yun away. Seeing him leave with his pet, the vice director shook his head and revealed a helpless smile before leaving as well. At the same time, Fingjiu, who had just come out of the transfer array, felt a force pushing her back. She staggered back a few steps. When she steadied herself and looked around, she saw that it was pitch black and she was the only one here. Thus, she took a deep breath and used her divine sense to investigate. She found that there was no one else within a 500-meter radius. Seeing that the sky was pitch black, she didn't plan on resting. Just as the Vice Academy head had said, the spiritual energy here was extremely abundant. Even the sealed territory in Enchanting Academy couldn't compare to this place. Moreover, she discovered that the spiritual energy here was even richer than in her space. However, the purity of the spiritual energy here couldn't be compared to her space. The dense spiritual energy here is condensed from the spirit gathering array and spirit stones. It's different from the space. However, with spirit stones aiding in cultivation, cultivating here can also increase one's strength. Moreover, we only have half a month here, so there's no need to think about resting. I should hurry up and find the center of the spirit gathering array. She softly muttered and looked around. Due to the spiritual energy in the air, it wasn't easy to find the center of the spiritual energy. Thus, she closed her eyes and used her spiritual energy to sense it. Because she had the purest spiritual energy in her body and had a profound spiritual body, she was more sensitive to spiritual energy than the average person. Thus, using her body and spiritual energy to sense the source of the spiritual energy wasn't difficult for her. However, if it was Nya Tung and the others, finding the source of the spiritual energy would be a bit more difficult. After a while, she opened her eyes and turned around, heading towards a pitch-black area. Her white figure flitted through the darkness like a ghost, coming and going without a trace in the same spirit realm. In a different place, the others also relaxed for a while after landing and began to search for the location of the spirit gathering array. In this place, the best place to cultivate was the surroundings of the spirit gathering array. Therefore, the students who came here would automatically search for this place. As long as they reached this place first, they wouldn't have to worry about not being able to meet other students and snatch their resources. However, some people didn't care too much about avoiding the battles because they were confident in their own strength. They felt that even if they didn't avoid the battles, they would still be able to enter the top 10. In the darkness of the night, white figures were moving around, searching for the location of the spirit gathering formation. Compared to the others, Fingjiu already knew the approximate location and was heading in that direction. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly rushed towards her. She dodged to the side to avoid the other party's attack. At the same time, she retreated to open up the distance between them. Above the white robes, there were 2 stars, indicating that he was a student of a 2-star academy. Humph. Consider yourself unlucky to have met me. Hand over your spirit stone pouch, the male student said in a low voice as he stared at Fengjiu with a sharp gaze. He was a foundation establishment middle stage cultivator, and Fengjiu's strength was only at the foundation establishment early stage. Therefore, it seemed that she was really unlucky to have met a foundation establishment middle stage cultivator. However, was she really unlucky? Chapter 907. He dared to snatch her spirit stones? Then don't blame her for snatching them back. You're the one who delivered yourself to me. Quick, hand over the bag of spirit stones. Otherwise, I'll do it myself. She narrowed her eyes as she stared at the bag on his waist. It seemed like he was very confident in his own abilities. She had kept her bag of spirit stones in her space, but this guy actually hung it on his waist. Tisheske, wasn't this clearly asking her to snatch it? Ha ha ha, what a joke. He raised his head and laughed, as if he heard something funny. Come and snatch it if you can. The moment he said that, a white figure flashed and attacked Fingjiu. Since you said it, don't blame me for being impolite. She curled her lips and flashed out at the same time. Her target was the bag of spirit stones on his waist. The night wind blew and lifted her white robe. Her outer robe was lifted by the night wind, revealing the rainbow-glazed feather that was hidden by her outer robe. When he saw the rainbow-glazed feather on Fengjiu's waist, that student's eyes lit up. It's the rainbow-glazed feather. Bang, bang, bang. When the two of them exchanged blows, their palms collided and produced a heavy sound. The airflow and pressure surged together. Both of their movements were extremely fast. Their movements were so fast that no one could see their movements. One could only hear the swift and fierce airflow streaking across the night sky. That student was hit by Fengjiu's palm and groaned. When he retracted his palm, Fengjiu's hand flicked down and directly snatched the bag of spirit stones from his waist. Give me back my spirit stones. He ignored the pain in his body and angrily shouted as he pounced forward. Fengjiu easily dodged and smiled. Don't be too greedy. My rainbow-glazed feather is not something that anyone can covet. As for your 10 spirit stones, I'll take them. That student was furious. When he saw her flash to the left, he immediately chased after her. Give me back my spirit stones. Damn it, I won't let you off. After chasing for a short distance, the student lost sight of him. He gritted his teeth and continued to search. This was not just a matter of 10 spirit stones, but also a matter of a single breath. He was a dignified intermediate stage foundation establishment cultivator from a 2-star academy. How could he let a kid from a 6-star academy snatch away his spirit stones? If this were to spread out, how would he be able to walk in the academy in the future? However, he didn't know that after Fengjiu led him away, he turned back to the original path. Looking at the male student who was out of sight, she couldn't help but reveal a light smile. You can slowly chase after him. I don't have time to play with you. She tossed the bag of spirit stones in her hand and opened it. Sure enough, there were 10 spirit stones inside. Thus, she directly put them into her space and continued to search for the spirit-gathering formation. After about half an hour or so, she came to a place where she stopped. Because there was an array formation in front of her, she couldn't rush around randomly. She had to first see what kind of array formation it was, and then go through it. Walking into the array formation, she paid attention to it. After walking around for a few laps, she walked for nearly half an hour before she came out of the 10 array formations. After passing through the last fog array formation, she arrived inside. But when she arrived inside, she couldn't help but stare. Chapter 908. Hiss! What a huge sum! Such a huge amount of spirit stones. She gasped slightly. Her tone was filled with surprise and astonishment, but her eyes were filled with excitement. This place was the center of the spirit gathering array. If she cultivated here, would she be able to break through again in half a month? Thinking of this, her heart became excited. She was now at the peak of the foundation establishment stage. If she broke through again, she would enter the golden core stage. Even if her spiritual power couldn't break through, her profound strength could still advance. This place is really good. There are so many resources here, but no one said that I can't use them. Then I can use them? She muttered as she squatted down to touch the spirit stones under her feet. Then, she looked at the large expanse of spirit stones. From the center point, there should be a spirit gathering formation laid out with spirit stones within 100 meters. No wonder she had to walk for half an hour in here. And then, I have to cultivate. It's such a waste not to cultivate in such a good place. But before that, I have to set up another array around here. She excitedly murmured and walked outside with light steps. She planned to add something to the surrounding array. This way, even if a student found this place, they could only cultivate outside the spirit gathering array and would not be able to come in and disturb her. Thus, she really did set up an array outside. After strengthening the array outside, she returned inside and sat down cross-legged in the center of the spirit gathering array. Even though it was late at night, under the flickering light of the various colors of spirit stones, the surroundings were bright. A dense aura of spiritual power pervaded from the ground and dispersed into the air. Outside the huge spirit gathering array, there was a thick fog, so thick that it blocked the view of the outside. She sat cross-legged in the middle of the spirit gathering array, but wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, she took out medicine from her space. This is suitable for advancement. This has the effect of reducing the power of lightning. This can temper the body. She placed several bottles of medicine and pills in front of her, planning to use these things to advance. In this place, the dense aura of spiritual power was the best place to advance. With the spirit gathering array protecting it, she didn't have to worry about the lack of spiritual power. After making up her mind, she immediately began to cultivate. As the origin cultivation method rotated, the surrounding spirit power aura seemed to be stirred. The spirit power aura that was originally spreading outwards rotated in the air and drilled into her body bit by bit. 1 day, 2 days passed, and aside from her, no one else had come here yet. However, they had met in the forest and had also exchanged blows with each other. When they met people from different academies, both sides had made up their minds to snatch the spirit stones. There were also some people who found a remote place to sit cross-legged and cultivate when they couldn't find the center of the spirit gathering formation. He thought to himself, since I'm already here, I don't want to waste such a good opportunity to cultivate without getting any spirit stones or improving my cultivation. But on the evening of the second day, finally a student came to the outside of the spirit gathering array. This student had a 2-star badge and was a student of the 2-star academy. After he came to the outside of the spirit gathering array, he also tried to break through the array formation to enter the central point, but the array formation inside had infinite changes and was simply not something that he could break through. Chapter 909. At night, more and more people arrived. Once they had a disagreement, they would start fighting. They would fight over spirit stones and resources. After all, even if this was the outer circle of the spirit gathering array, there were many people cultivating here. The spirit chi in this area would naturally disperse and be absorbed. Therefore, they did not want anyone to fight with them. Feng Jiu could faintly hear the fighting outside, but she did not pay attention to it. At this time, she was using the Hunyuan cultivation method to absorb the surrounding spirit chi. The spirit gathering array's spirit chi was absorbed by her body and dissolved into it. If it was someone else, their body would not be able to withstand absorbing so much spirit chi, but she was different. She separated a part of the spirit chi to nourish the azure lotus in her dantian. This was the first time so much spirit chi was nourishing the azure lotus. In addition to nourishing the azure lotus, she was also expanding the meridians in her body and gathering the spirit chi in her dantian. She planned to break through to the gold core stage with the help of pills and medicines. As long as she broke through the foundation establishment stage and entered the gold core stage, it would be a good thing for her whether she could enter the peak stage or not. At dawn, the third day arrived. Nye Tung, Ouyang Xiao, and Xiao Yihan also found the spirit gathering array. Seeing the students sitting around cultivating, they also planned to find a place to sit and cultivate. After all, compared to avoiding battles, they were more interested in increasing their strength. Then, the 3 of them each found a place to sit down. The 2-star students who were cultivating closed their eyes and shouted, "Get lost!" The word scram was something the 3 of them had rarely heard. Among them, Nye Tung and Ouyang Xiao were both crown princes of 6th-class countries. They were second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. Since they were young, they had been respected. Who would dare to be presumptuous towards them? As for Xiao Yihan, although he was not born in the royal family, he was also from a noble family. Usually, there were not many people who dared to talk to him like this, let alone people from the Two-Star Academy. Therefore, when they heard the sentence, the three people's faces sank. What did you say? Say it again. Ouyang Xiao coldly stared at the two-star student. His hand was already on the sword at his waist. I told you to get lost. The man stood up. He was a peak foundation establishment stage cultivator. Naturally, he did not put the three in his eyes.
Chi.
What a joke. Xiao Yihan sneered, and in the next moment, his figure swept out and attacked him. His raised palm carried a sharp wind, and with a whoosh, it seemed to have turned into a sharp blade in an instant. You overestimate yourself. That person snorted coldly and also went up to meet him. He struck with his sword the moment he attacked, unlike Xiao Yihan, who was fighting with his bare hands. The sharp edge of the sword slashed and cut through Xiao Yihan's clothes at an extremely fast speed. A trace of blood faintly seeped out. Seeing this scene, Enchanting's eyes flashed with a cold light. Just as Ouyang Xiao was about to make his move, he immediately rushed forward. Both of them were peak foundation establishment stage cultivators. Both sides had paid attention to each other and had evaluated each other's strength. It could be said that the Two-Star Academy regarded Enchanting as a formidable opponent, and Enchanting also regarded him as an opponent. As for Fingjiu, Enchanting had never thought of beating her, so he naturally did not see her as an opponent. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.